Welcome to Integrative Nurse Coaches in Action, the podcast where nurses, healthcare professionals, and consumers come to hear from inspirational nurse leaders in health and wellness coaching. We cover the latest innovations, ideas, and breakthroughs from nurses who are shifting the paradigm of disease care to health care through the art and science of nurse coaching. And what happens to the caregivers once they leave a facility, get home with their mom or daughter or spouse, and now they have to tackle all of their other life challenges and care for the one they love? Renee Panec brings light to the caregiver challenges and the absolute possibility of hope for those who are caring for loved ones. She sprinkles in ideas about how to care for the caregiver and how to allow for patience, support, and love to honor the selflessness of caregivers. Renee also speaks to being a brand new entrepreneur and the methodical steps she's taking to expand her reach to support her clientele, those amazing humans who care for other humans. Before we get to today's podcast, let's take 3 deep breaths in and out together. 1, 2, 3. Now we're ready. As an RN with over 35 years of experience, Renee Panec has seen and experienced many changes and challenges in our healthcare system. She worked bedside in med-surg, tele, and oncology units, skipping too many meals, caring for too many patients, and having too little time. She's also knowledgeable in chronic care management and understands the insurance side of healthcare as a care and case manager. In addition to her nursing career, Renee is a wife and a mom who has experienced the personal challenge of being a family caregiver and the very real grief that comes with caregiving. Welcome, everyone, to the Integrative Nurse Coaches in Action podcast. My name is Nicole Vieno. I am your host, and I'm also a board-certified integrative nurse coach. And today we have a special guest all the way from Placerville, California. Renee Panec is a health and wellness nurse coach board certified. She is starting her own business, so she's becoming a new entrepreneur, and her passion is helping caregivers, everyone from nurses to the unpaid and underappreciated family caregivers. They're the backbone of our healthcare system, and they're often not recognized. And Renee's been developing some programming, a mix of online and real-time nurse coaching. And she just wants to be able to support all the caregivers to help them understand that they are so incredibly worthy, that they have to care for themselves in order to be able to care for other people. And she's been doing a lot of really, really great things. And I see you, Renee. I see you doing all of the new things, becoming an entrepreneur. And I know this podcast will be full of many, many nuggets as you get to share your story with all of us and we get to listen to it. So welcome, Renee.
Thank you, Nicole. It's great to be here. You've had so many amazing guests. I hope I can give the same kind of encouragement and support that I've received from your other podcasts.
Well, that's why you're here. So you can share your story. Yeah. Everyone's story is so unique. And we know that as nurses, as nurse coaches, that the story is where it's at. It's how we learn so much and how we can relate to each other too.
And really, that's one of the things I've loved about nursing is that there's so much opportunity to connect with people who are outside of your normal social contacts. And, you know, everybody has different stories in their lives going on. And people are often at such a vulnerable point in their life that they still share so much. I've learned so much from so many different patients.
Yes. And now we get to learn from you. Yes. So we love to go down history lane and love to ask the question, how did you discover nursing?
I was young. I was in high school. I started, when you start thinking about what you want to be, right? And everybody's asking you that question like every other day, right? I really loved my science classes. I was taking like an anatomy and physiology class, and I loved biology. And I thought, oh, nursing is that would be a great job. Nurses are always in demand, and they're well thought of, and it sounded like you could make enough money as a nurse. So I started telling people I was going to be a nurse, and everyone was like, oh, that's fantastic. And you could just see them kind of check off that box, like this one's solved, check, on to the next. But really, I didn't have any nurses or health people in my family. So when I said I was going to be a nurse, I was really clueless as to what that really meant. And after high school, I went to a local community college. I went through their program and got my, associate degree in nursing. And even though it took longer than, I thought a 2-year program would take, I was still not even 21 when I graduated with my AA in nursing and took my boards and all that. So when I got my first job as an IP, an interim permit, I think is what they called it, and you could work before you got your actual official notice from the state boards that you had passed. So I started at a local community hospital, medium sized, but it was also a trauma facility. And I was put on nights like most of the new people were, and it was a 20-bed unit. And I worked on that unit with one LVN.
Back in the day, that's the way they used to do things, right?
Back in the day, yeah. Glass IV bottles. You even still had glass thermometers, yeah.
Right, glass thermometers, glass IV bottles.
Yeah, right. It was crazy.
Yeah. So you've gotten to see then so much in your career.
Yeah, there's definitely been, so many changes in healthcare and in, how hospitals work. But I remember even all that time ago, we were talking about, the nursing shortage, and there was still, it feels like all the same conversations around nursing, and that there was, never enough nurses, and, there was always too much stress and too many things to be done and not enough time to do it. And that seems to be still the story today. So some things have changed a lot, and some things are still seems to be exactly the same.
Yeah, even those years ago as nurses faced with so much stress and so little time to do all the things that we really have to do and really want to do for our patients, especially. This ties in then to how you are evolving as a human and realizing that caregivers are really struggling.
Caregivers are really struggling. They really are, Nicole. We look at nursing or caregiving from the nursing point of view, and where we're seeing patients stay for a shorter length of time. They come in sicker, they go home sicker still, but we haven't really talked about, what happens when these patients who are still sick, sometimes pretty significantly ill still, or still really recovering, go home. And we're happy when we send them home and they seem to have a good family situation and there's somebody there to help them. And we think, oh, good, everything's done. But I know in all my time as a bedside nurse that I never really gave any thought to what the caregiver was going to be dealing with, except in terms of how that would affect my patient. So the focus was always on, have we trained the caregiver? Have we taught them what they need to know? Is it a safe environment for the patient? But never have thought about, how that caregiver is going to manage taking care of this patient as well as everything else going on in their lives.
I think it's safe to say that the majority of us as nurses don't think of that. I mean, truly, you think, oh, well, yeah, they have a supportive family. We have a plan of action. They're going to go home. And now someone else is having to care for them in addition to all of the other things that they're doing.
Right. It's like, well, I taught them their medications and their, how to check the blood sugars and how to do the dressing change. I did good. I even, they did a return demo. We're all good. And then they go home and whoever's on the other side is suddenly dealing with all the intricacies of things that you really can't get to in discharge planning and training. There's, all the complexities that we deal with as nurses, but they're dealing with not as nurses, just as, a family who thought, sure, I could take this on. I can do this. It's not too hard. Look, she did it really easy. But
Right.
then the next day it's different.
And the next day it's different. Exactly. Yeah. For the caregiver, seeing nurses do their, checks and everything like that is so simple, right? When we're doing something, because, well,
Right.
you just said, you went to school for all those years and we went to school for all those years. And then we've been practicing for decades. And then we're showing people something that is so simple to us. And yet the intricacies of what they have to do. And then they take that home with them and then try to do it and replicate what we've shown them, but in their own environments, it then changes everything completely.
Right. And then we don't often take into account either all the other activities that happen at home that are not happening in the hospital. So things as simple as, we're checking the blood sugar, but we're not cooking the breakfast too. We have trays that come to the floor and, we may deliver them or maybe the dietary delivers them, but the food's ready. At home, you're balancing that, preparing the meal, giving the insulin, doing all that, as well as then simple things like doing the extra laundry for a patient who's maybe soiling linens frequently. And as busy as we are as nurses in the hospital, we still just sort of put those in a container and they get taken away. we don't have to do that part, thank goodness. But of course at home you are. So there's a lot of things built into our hospital jobs that aren't there when the patient gets home, and that's part of what they're juggling as well. And as though we may have other patients to take care of too, these family caregivers also have a variety of other responsibilities. They may still be working and juggling how to do this while they're working. They may have other individuals in the household, either other adults or kids or teens that also need time and attention and care, as well as, the household itself that needs to keep functioning.
Yeah, a whole width and breadth of many tasks that have to get accomplished and still give that person that their new patient, in a sense, even though it's a
Right.
family member, right? But they become their patient, and that overwhelming sense of having to do it all alone.
And this can be, just like you said, really overwhelming, especially, first coming home from the hospital and, you're not sure, how to do all these different things, and things are always a little bit different at home. And if it's a short-term thing where your loved one is going to shortly recover, they had a surgery, and in a week they're going to be doing better and doing more on their own, most people can manage that, with minor changes in their life and their household to get through that, initial change. Where it gets really tough is where this is a continuing condition that isn't going to improve. So whether we're talking about something like sending home a patient with Alzheimer's or dementia, or, a chronic condition like a COPD, or, a cancer diagnosis that's going to continue to evolve over time and that may not get better. You bring in a lot more uncertainty and a lot greater needs for both the immediate care and for ongoing care. Where it seemed like it was doable for a short term, now you're thinking, I'm going to be doing this every day for as long as you can foresee.
Yeah, it changes the way that you would live your life.
Yeah. I mean, I think any of us, if we think about how busy we are in our life now, and then add something like that into your life and think about how that would affect everything that you do, from, going to the grocery store or taking a walk or going to whatever, socialize, whatever kind of things fill your life now, and then add in a daily constant responsibility of caring for another adult.
Yeah. It totally shifts the way that you would be living your life. And in a sense, you're almost having to relearn how to live this life with these new responsibilities too.
Right. And that brings up a lot of feelings too in caregivers, in terms of not only overwhelm, but they may be sad about their current situation. They may experience feelings of grief, of that loss of the life that they anticipated living. And now it's going to be a very different kind of life. And it's often kind of unacknowledged. As I said, these caregivers, from whatever kind of life they've been living, whether they were professionals and had a professional job, or if they were, a mom home with the kids, it's still huge. And you may be educated and practiced and very competent at your other tasks, but now you're faced with something that you've never been trained to do. And you don't really have the support system in place of people who have dealt with what you're dealing with and can understand and appreciate it.
Yeah, the thing that just popped into my mind was, I think of, when you become pregnant and you have, you're anticipating that you would have a baby, and hopefully everything works out that you do have a baby in the end, but you have these 9 months to prepare for something. And
Right.
then when it happens, you still don't know what's going on. you have to learn as you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this is different because some of these things, obviously illness is not planned. We don't plan for such things to happen. And so there is no preparation for something like this.
Exactly. And making that transition from, whatever your life was to what it's going to be now, if you're bringing home somebody in your family who's had, was in a bad motor vehicle accident and now they have a brain injury, and the person you remember is now very different from the person who's living in your house.
Mm.
And every day is different, and figuring out, how you're going to live your life and care for this person is not really talked about as part of our discharge plans.
Right. No, it's not. And then the support after, when they have moved on is also not a large piece of how we support and honor people who are going through this new life transition. So then this brings me to the next question is, how is it that you decided to combine your skills in nursing, your skills in nurse coaching, and then move into this realm of wanting to practice and support the caregiver?
Well, as you're going through nurse coaching and you're thinking about, where your skills lie, who you want to help, I think I touched on a lot of different areas because I do have experience in doing health coaching with patients with chronic conditions like diabetes or heart failure as well. And initially I thought I would do, focus on chronic conditions and help people who are dealing with that kind of thing. But I really became aware of the challenges with caregivers' experience from my own life, from being a family caregiver myself. And one of the things that has been said to us, so many times when we're talking about this is, start where you are. And where I am right now is, and where I have been is as a family caregiver. When I first discovered nurse coaching, I was looking for something that would definitely improve my skills from a nurse coaching perspective, from a health coach perspective. But I was really at a low point of feeling totally burned out and overwhelmed with family caregiver responsibilities. My oldest son had been diagnosed with a mental health issue. He was diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder. And that is, it's a terrible diagnosis. It's like combining, schizophrenia with a major mood disorder like depression. And dealing with a young adult at the time who was, being given this terrible diagnosis, who was trying to become independent adult while the whole world no longer made sense. And just pouring so much of my time and my energy and my hope and my determination into him, into helping him be stable and have a living space that was stable, and to get the care that he needed to live his best life, and still being there for my husband and my younger two sons as well. And talk about trying to pour from an empty cup. It was like my cup wasn't just empty, it had holes in the bottom. So it's like no matter how much I thought I could put into it, it didn't matter. It was just all running. It was just all running out. And I had signed up. I had found this thing about Inca, and I talked to Jan and did the intake with her. And I was just like, I really want to do this. But I talked to my husband, and, you had to be away from the house for like the initial days. I don't remember even how many days it was, but if it was 2 days, it must have been 4 days, I think. It was a 4-day initial thing. And just being away from that long seemed like that would be impossible. My husband said, no, you need to go do that, because he could really see how much I was struggling. Looking back at where I was at the beginning, when I started going through the Inca program, was as a empty caregiver. And looking back from it now, it seems like, well, of course, that's where I need to be, because that's what brought me into it, was this feeling that I was empty, that there was nothing there for me. And what I learned from going through the program was not what I thought I needed to learn. I went into it thinking very concrete skills, like, the motivational interviewing and their rapid action plans, and, these very concrete kind of, maybe not exactly concrete, but, things. And what I took out of it was this desperate need for self-care I had not really recognized, that I did not know that what I was doing for myself that I thought was enough was not nearly what I needed to have in my life at that time. Yeah, it was really, really hard. And I came back with this shift in perspectives of what I needed and how important that was.
Thank goodness for your loving, supportive husband to say, yes, you need to go.
Yeah, he is amazing. And he has given me so much. And it's one of the true blessings of my life, is to be in a relationship with that, where he is truly concerned and supportive of my caring nature.
Yes.
He recognizes that's who I am.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we all need support systems. So that's a huge strength that you can bring along with you.
It is, absolutely.
It is. So you realized when you were taking the Integrative Nurse Coach Academy's nurse coach programming that you were like, okay, well, I came here to learn these skills and tools. And yes, you learned those. And in addition, you learned something you didn't think you needed.
I had to sit down and meditate that first morning. I was like, what am I doing? Why am I sitting here and breathing? There's things I need to learn, and it was so hard to step away from that. And I was like, okay, fine, we'll do this meditation thing, and then we'll get into it. And then we did journaling. And it was, all of these things that I recognize now, that were wonderful and really good and really helped me to connect to what I needed. But at the time, I was like, when is the program really going to start? When are we going to get to it?
I'm laughing right alongside you, because definitely the same things popped in for me too when I was taking the program.
Yeah. And that was not what I was expecting at all.
Mm-hmm.
And even as we started to break up into pairs to talk about, or to practice the coaching and to do these other things, it was like every time we started, it's like I would just end up crying. No matter who my coach was, no matter what the subject was, it always came back to to what I was dealing with right then and there, and how really desperately I needed that support and that time away and that ability to learn these skills, that time to learn those skills of self-care.
And now, a word from our sponsor. The Integrative Nurse Coach Academy offers nurses innovative approaches to re-energize and expand your nursing practice with new skills and tools that focus on lifestyle health and well-being. As an integrative nurse coach, you will confidently promote wellness and resiliency by guiding your clients, patients, and communities to deepen their connections to inner healing resources and expand their capacities to make meaningful choices for healthy lifestyle change. Plus, you'll learn critical self-care tools to actively take care of your own health and well-being on the journey. Join the global Integrative Nurse Coach Academy community and rediscover your passion for nursing in the online Integrative Nurse Coach Certificate Program. Learn more about our programs at inursecoach.com. And when you register for the Integrative Nurse Coach Certificate Program, be sure to use the code ACTION to get $100 off the Part 1 and 2 bundle. Now, back to the podcast.
Really desperately, I needed that support and that time away and that ability to learn these skills, that time to learn those skills of self-care.
Why do you think that is, that you found yourself every time that you were, we broke up into pairs, we were practicing our skills? Why do you think it is that it ended in tears for you?
I think it was the first people I'd really been able to talk to about what was really, really going on in my life and how it was affecting me on a really deep level. And you're surrounded by, these amazing other nurses who are there to become nurse coaches, but really they already are. They have that heart and that spirit there. And that's what they shared with me, was there so much understanding and support and healing, really healing. This whole room was filled with this different energy that you don't experience out in the real life unless you create it intentionally. And it was there in abundance. And my heart was so, raw, and it just responded to everybody's nurturing.
The open-heartedness of nurse coaches.
Yes, exactly. And it was that whole, I don't remember what the whole acronym stands for, but it was like listening with heart. And you had that feeling that you were really being heard on multiple levels, that not just your words were being heard, but that people were, really taking the time to join you in that moment and in that pain. And it's like you have family and you have friends, but it's like what you share in those moments, is different, at least for me. And I've grown with that a lot too, in learning how to be more authentic myself. And that's one of the things too that has come out of nurse coaching, is that, learning to share who I am authentically and, with more honesty than I was able to do before. Because there's a lot of stigma still around mental illness issues. And having, my beautiful son who was loved by so many people, who had, he hadn't experienced any of these, terrible traumas that so many people in our world do, who have, who also have mental illness. But, he was just loved in a family, in his sort of family. And, we were still experiencing that. And it was hard for us to understand and to be able to share it in a way that other family members or friends could understand it. It was really hard.
Thank you for sharing this time of your life and the struggles that you went through, and finding this community of nurse coaches to help support you. And in the end, you really taking these skills away to your place, to your home. And, you have to then figure out how those new skills are going to fit into your life as you transition into that. And I have a question in just a moment. I just wanted to just bring in listening with heart that you brought up earlier. I'm going to share a link in the show notes about this, because listening with heart, the acronym HEART, I believe H stands for healing, E is energy, A is awareness, R is resiliency, and T is transformation.
Oh, yes. And I think without even remembering the acronym, I touched on several of those.
You sure did.
By the words. So, yeah.
Yeah. And how that intention makes you feel too.
Well, and it's a term that I've used even before, Inka, when I was talking to people who are having a hard time listening. Sometimes, like, for instance, my son, he would get very caught up in the exact word that was being said and feel frustrated that I wasn't using it in the same way that he was. There was, a conflict in the definitions, and I would just listen to my heart. This is what I'm telling you from my heart. Don't get so caught up in the definitions that you can't hear what I'm saying. And so I think that's why that term really, resonated with me, is because I do feel like we really have to set aside sometimes our preconceived ideas of what people are saying or what words mean even, and listen to, what they're really communicating to us on all the different levels.
So true. So good. Tell us what cohort you were in.
I started with one cohort and I had to finish with a different one. So I think I started with 16 and I finished with 18.
Yeah. So you've been in the nurse coaching world for a few years now.
Yes, a long time.
Yeah. I think they're in the 40s now in the cohort. So it's busy.
Yeah, I know. So,
right. And so you settled in with these skills for many years, and
yes.
using them in the role that you were in. I call that bloom where you're planted, right? You're using,
Right.
you're staying in the role that you're in, and you are using the skills and tools and new reflections and self-learning and growing with that. And of course, life happens and new experiences happen. And, you've gone through different things in your life, and you're moving into this new realm of becoming an entrepreneur.
Yes. And it's taken me, like you said, it's taken me a while to get back to being here. I think being an entrepreneur is something that's always been in my heart, even though, in nursing, it wasn't really something you ever heard of with nursing. When I started nursing, if there was entrepreneurs in nursing, I have no idea who or where they were, but there may have been a few bold people starting out there.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know of any roles for nursing. So when I started with Inca, that was definitely one of my hopes at the time, was to use these skills to be an entrepreneur. The timing wasn't right. And I've taken a lot of kind of like half steps forward over these years to thinking, okay, I'm going to start now, or maybe I'm not going to start now, and pulling back and doing, still working on those skills, but working on them, like you said, where you're planted. So at home, at my current job, in my community, and sharing in small ways who I am and what I'm doing and how I can help people. And life for everybody over the last years has been really challenging. And it was really challenging for us as well. We lost our oldest son about 4.5 years ago. My son with mental health issues. And, needless to say, that was another area that just tore the rug out from underneath us. And, when you can't even think about breathing, it's like you don't have any energy for anything else. All you can do is, wait and just keep moving on as best as you can. And our path through grieving has been, really complicated. It was complicated with this illness, by how we lost him. And then right after that, we went into the pandemic. So there was kind of events on top of events. Now I'm finding myself in a new place in where I am. And I don't think you ever really heal from this kind of grief, but I find that I'm better at integrating what I've learned about myself and my experiences. And I'm really finding that what brought me to coaching in the first place is this idea of being a caregiver who needed help, and looking around and seeing so many other caregivers who are struggling so much, and thinking, how can I help support these people the way I was supported when I went through Inca? I think as nurses, our natural inclination is to reach out to people to want to see them healed and, living healthier lives. And that's where I'm at now, is that I want to reach out to these people and help them in to find ways to live their life where they're at now, but with better health, more happiness, joy. And to do that, I have to also be open about, the challenges. It's not, we can't make that part of life go away. There's not a magic wand that I can wave that's going to take away those challenges in your life. It's going to be about, finding a way to nurture yourself while you're dealing with those challenges. So that even though while you're dealing with it, you can still experience yourself as a full human being. I don't know. I feel like I may have gotten a little off track with that question.
I don't think so at all. I think that was a beautiful connection to the very unique paths that we each have. And, your loss of Nathan and how that deep loss affected you in so many ways. And yet you said, I started looking around when you were able to look around, and you could see so many other people who were in similar situations who didn't have the support that you felt that you had during those times. And now you're standing up to say, these are the people that I want to help.
Yeah. I just feel like maybe in the future, there'll be other areas of people too that I identify with and want to help. But right now, I feel where my heart is really calling me to support people who are going through, various caregiver struggles, because there's a lot. There's so many people in our society right now who are currently caregivers or who will be caregivers, in the future, and no one is really prepared for that role.
No, we're not prepared for that role. Yes. So as you have been journeying into entrepreneurship, then I just want to point out for our listeners, many of our graduates feel that they have to do certain things. They have to do, graduate and have to go into starting a business and have to, your example of your life, your story is a true example of, no, you don't have to do anything. And you chose to use the skills where you're planted to continue on with the role that you were in. Life circumstances threw you upside down, and yet you still use the tools that you learned through the course and the understanding about the unique needs of self-care and how that fit into your life. And now, as you've come out of this, you have all of these gifts that you received along that journey to be able to share as you go forward. So now, years later, you're deciding, hey, now it's time for me to be an entrepreneur. So I'm curious to know some of the things that you've learned through this journey of starting to say, yes, I am. This is the path I would like to travel. And what are some things that you've learned along this journey?
Well, I feel like there's really been a lot of things I've learned, starting this journey. I've mentioned that, I took a few half steps here and there towards entrepreneurship, and then would always step back because it always felt like there was so much to learn. I didn't have time to do all that and anything else. So the business side of being a nurse coach and setting up a business was, a whole separate side of what you had to learn, and how your own state board nursing practice act, how you have to know what's in that so you know where you can practice safely, and what's in your scope because you want to stay within that. And I think one of the things I'm learning right now is about connections. So I'm reaching out a lot on social media to make connections with people and to invite them in. And I'm also trying to do that in real life, in person, and learning how to make connections and how to be there for people in an open, honest way, just as somebody who's curious and interested about their lives, not necessarily from a perspective of, oh, I need a client, or, oh, I need that. That doesn't feel good to me. That doesn't feel like who I am. So I'm finding that balance between what, so many of the, social media gurus say about how to be present online and, what you have to do and how you have to do it, and discovering, what in all of that noise works for me and who I am and what do I think adds value. and what might bring people to me for what I have to offer. I can't fix everybody's problems for sure. And, there's so much about connecting and about learning who you are and what you have to share. When I first started social media, and I think I shared this with you at one point too, is that, I felt like I had been in my own little cave for so long. And that as soon as you started peeking your head out on social media, everybody is out there and they want to come chasing at you with all their offers, right? With all this stuff, and everybody is coming at you. And I just felt like I was being like chased by zombies. And it felt so terrible to me. It felt like it made me want to go hide again, because it was just so intense for somebody who's, pretty much an introvert, and to be out there and trying to do this felt very frightening, to have all these zombies chasing me. And then as I started coming out and trying to make these offers and being visible in their lives, I also worried then that now I was the zombie and I was chasing all these people, and that also does not feel good. So I've learned to kind of shift some of that, that mental image to like more like I'm out there like throwing bird seed out for the birds. And I'm trying to, share what I have and to bring them closer so I can share more, but not to be chasing in that role of chasing people. And it's really been a distinction and a mental shift for me. Yeah.
I like the imagery of just putting out some bird seed, and eventually some birds are going to come and they're going to get more comfortable with me, and maybe they'll come a little closer.
Right. But even when you're putting out bird seed, the same bird feed doesn't attract all the birds, right? It's just like you choosing the bird seed so that you attract what you want to see in your yard, but more than just all the bird seed for everybody.
Right. I love that.
Because I've learned you don't want it to attract woodpeckers. That is not a good thing. They make holes in your house.
Right. Selective birds.
Yes. So it's okay to be a little selective.
Well, you make a great point too about social media, and just some people have an ease with social media and they just fall into patterns of that feel comfortable for them. And some people don't want to be on social media all that much. And, we don't have to be. I think that's something to put out there. We don't have to be on social media. There are plenty of people within our reach in our communities that we can reach out to. We don't have to do all that. And at the same time, it's like learning new skills too.
Right. And with learning new skills, I think one of the important things to think about too is the stories that you tell yourself about who you are. Because like I've said, I'm a quiet introvert, but that's also part of the story that I've always told myself too. And it's like, I also have the power to be somebody else, or to come out of that, or to be an introvert and still share myself with the people I want to share my stories with. My sister sent me some really cute pictures for my birthday of us growing up as kids, right? When I think back of myself, who I was as a child, I picture this very quiet little girl, kind of sitting in the corner and not interacting and not really being present and out there. And she sent me, every picture she sent me, I have this big smile and I'm like center stage and I'm like hugging her and we're right there, out there together. And, I'm hanging over the shoulder of the Frankenstein at the wherever we were. But, he's like, and she's right there next to me. But every picture, I don't look like this little girl that I've had pictured in my mind. So sometimes the stories we tell ourselves is not the whole story. There's more to us than whatever story is at the top. And part of, I think, of my growth and what I've learned through challenging myself and through, connecting with myself and being aware is that this little girl is still there, that is, not afraid to like throw her arms around the Frankenstein and laugh with my sister. I'm not just this shy little girl. I was also funny and vivacious and confident. And part of my self-talk now is to remind myself that's who I am too, is that I am funny and I am confident and I can step out of this role and I can step into the center stage and I can share who I am with other people who may need to hear that too.
Yes.
Personal growth.
Personal growth. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a beautiful reminder of your youth and how our stories can change over time. And they can change again over time. We don't have to.
Our interpretation of our stories changes over time. Is that, we only remember a part of it. We don't maybe remember all of it. And take some time to look at yourself from someone else's point of view too, because they may not see you the way you've always seen yourself. We do become what we tell ourselves we are. So, take some time to nurture your self-talk and make sure that you're telling yourself not only who you thought you were, but to allow yourself the room to grow into who you think you're going to be, who you want to be, and allow yourself to recognize those traits when they come up.
Thank you for sharing that. Yes. Love it. So in our last few moments together, we've learned so much about you. And now I'm going to ask you what is on your heart that you would like to share with our listeners.
I think that what I would really love is for every nurse to really embrace their power for changing the world. To me, that's really what it comes down to with being in this world now, is that we're looking around us. We're looking at, as nurse coaches, who we can heal. We're starting with ourselves. We're pouring that love and that care into our own being. And then what you do is you look around and you see who else needs your love and your nurturing and your care. And you start sharing that in whatever way works for you, whether it's in a small way, helping your neighbor, helping your family, being present in, their lives in a real way. And you sow those seeds for change within them and you give them back that love. And the world needs your unique energy, your unique spirit. You are more than what you know you are right now. So just keep growing, keep healing yourself, and let that love and that energy and your spirit flow into the people that you come around with. And we will change the world, Nicole.
Woo! Yes. Thank you. I just soaked all of that, all of your words of wisdom, soaked them right into my heart. Thank you.
Thank you, Kat, for having me here.
Yes, we've really enjoyed having you on the podcast, and I know our listeners are just also soaking up so much knowledge and wisdom and passion and love. So thank you for that. So I like to shift gears towards the end of our podcast for just a few quick answered questions. You can't think too much about these, Renee. Okay, get ready.
Okay, I'm ready.
You're ready. Pigeons or crows?
Crows.
Tell us why.
I love crows. I know that most people don't, but when I was little, we lived in Victorville, California, which is out in the high desert area. And crows was one of the birds that lived there. And when my sister and I would play, we would be crows and we would fly across going, caw, caw, caw. Those are the birds we saw there. And they're very smart birds. They have funerals for their friends. They recognize people. And if you leave gifts up for the crows, they'll know who you are and they'll keep an eye out for you. So yeah, crows for sure.
I love that. I had a flashback to my childhood too, because we would be crows too and make the sound.
funny. I never knew anybody else did that.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so good. That's a good flashback for me. So the name of our podcast is Integrative Nurse Coaches in Action. And action is an acronym. It stands for authentic, curious, truthful, inspiring, open, and nurturing. Authentic, curious, truthful, inspiring, open, nurturing. Which word stands out to you?
Wow, I love them all, but I think I'm all about nurturing. I think that's the one that definitely comes out to my mind, is that I've needed it, and I want to give that back to other people who need that care and that nurturing.
Yes. Yes, yes. We can all feel your nurturing heart as we definitely. So I know you have a Facebook group. So tell us a little bit about that.
So I have a Facebook group that I'm growing. It's called Caring for Caregivers. And my goal with that group is to connect with other family caregivers and other nurses and to give them community support, encouragement, and to be a place for people to come.
Yes. And you share a lot of excellent tidbits on self-care and things to think about and inspire others who are on this journey of being a caregiver.
Yeah, I'm definitely big on caregiving.
Caregiving for the caregivers, right?
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Figuring out how to do that and what that means to each individual, because it's always different.
Right. And I know that you recently also obtained your business, like an official business. Tell us about
I'm
that.
so excited.
Yeah.
Yes. So my official business is called Whole Health Nursing Incorporated. So you can find me. We'll be building a website soon, or something simple. So you'll be able to find me there. But you can also email me at that website at Renee@wholehealthnursing.com.
Yes. And it's part of the journey, website building and social
Yes,
media.
there's been so much.
Yes, getting out there and connecting to people. And just like you say, you're just doing steps by steps by steps.
Right. And that's where I try and look, is at the next step is what I want to do to get to the next step.
Oh, yes. Well, thank you so much, Renee, for sharing your time and energy and wisdom with us. We're so appreciative.
Well, thank you again so much, Nicole.